was machen Sachen? Ja, wir schauen uns heute mal ein Video von The Ordinary Gaming an über die neue DeepSeek Situation, also die neue AI, die aus China kommt. Ich weiß noch nicht so wirklich viel drüber. Ich habe das jetzt halt auch zufälligerweise in meinem Videovorschlägen gefunden und dachte, ja, wieso hören wir uns das nicht mal an? Videos auf Englisch, ich habe die automatischen Untertitel an. Es gibt halt keine deutschen, aber ich denke, wir sind eh ein bisschen multilingual hier unterwegs, das passt schon. Bin mal gespannt, was da so zu sagen gibt, oder zu hören gibt.
Alright, so you knew this video is coming, ladies and gentlemen. It's late, it's dark right now, and ladies and gentlemen, DeepSeek is one of the wildest surprises this week. For anybody that doesn't know, artificial intelligence is pretty much here to stay, and
Ja,
there's
mir
a lot
wären's
of
nicht mehr
companies
los.
out there that are basically running to the top to create one day the artificial intelligence of our dreams, AGI, whatever the name is. Tons of companies are chasing this trend. Now, in the last couple days, a company by the name of DeepSeek actually ended up making the news everywhere. It ended up basically turning the world upside on its head by releasing a free competitor to one of the
Das ist
largest
sogar
actual
gratis.
competitors in the space, OpenAI. You know, the guys that make ChatGPT. There's actually a lot to cover over here, so I'm going to kind of start from the beginning. Now, OpenAI has a bunch of models. One of the models they have is OpenAI O1, which is a model that's designed to spend more time thinking before they respond. And of course, it's one where, again, the AI will think, guide through its steps. It's designed to not only provide you better answers to your questions, but logically work through
Auf den
problems
Weg. Ja.
in a much more intensive way. And of course, it's not the only thing they do. If you followed anything AI related that I've covered throughout this, the time period, I've looked at things like Sora. I've looked at various models.
Es gibt schon interessante Sachen.
Image generation, so on and so forth. Now, today, the reason I'm talking about DeepSeek primarily is that not only have the Chinese released this crazy artificial intelligence competition, but if you're reading at the top, it's not only live, it's actually open source. Meaning that you can run it on your device
Ich mag
locally
Open
with
Source Sachen.
100% privacy, independent of Chinese spying or American spying, or really anything. Which is something, obviously, I'm going to show you in this video, okay? I think it's important for me to teach you guys how to run AI locally. Now, I don't think AI is going anywhere, but I do want to make sure this stuff is super duper safe. And I always recommend that if you can self-host something like this,
Wir wollen auf Nummer sicher gehen.
Generally speaking, anytime you interact with ChatGPT, DeepSeek, or really any AI on the internet through web interfaces, you are giving up a whole chunk of your information. Any image you send over could be used for training information, stored for whatever reason. So I'm going to show you how to run all of these things locally on your device, so nobody can grab your information, and generally when you're interacting with
Dass die Daten hoffentlich bei ihm bleiben.
capable hardware, you don't have to send your information to any random place. But let's go even deeper into this. Now, a couple days ago, OpenAI decided to announce something known as the Stargate Project. Now, the Stargate Project is a new company which intends to invest $500 billion over the next 4 years building new AI infrastructure for OpenAI all the way throughout the United States. So they're going to be deploying $100 billion right now. The infrastructure will create leadership in AI, create hundreds of thousands of American jobs, and generate massive economic benefit for the entire world. So yeah, that's a lot of money to be throwing, right? And at the end of it, they also announced that the big partners for them are going to be ARM, Microsoft, Nvidia, Oracle, and OpenAI. These are key initial technology partners. So with $500 billion, you might be wondering, how much do the Chinese spend on something like DeepSeek? So according to the Chinese, it costs somewhere around $5.6 million, which would be far less than
Das ist eine deutlich kleinere Zahl.
$1 billion. One of the executives estimated to build a similar model last year. So again, ladies and gentlemen, it's kind of wild that this is the actual case. Because if we're spending billions of dollars on one end and the Chinese are somehow able to spend literally a tiny fraction of that.
Aber wir auch. Das ist halt so absurd wenig im Vergleich zu dem anderen.
Nobody really knows what the real cost for it could be.
Ja, das ist auch wieder die Sache. Dies ist die Wahrheit.
Very large loss leader just to simply test how Americans may choose to use artificial intelligence that belongs to another country. And of course, it could also be a situation where nobody is really going to know these deep costs, and this could be bankrolled by, again, larger hedge funds, larger parts of the Chinese government, and that could be used to ultimately become this loss leader that people will use. You know, even if they distribute this, which from what I understand is basically free at the moment, it literally could just be something where you chunk it, where you throw in a bunch of money just to drown out or scare your actual competition in the private space. So if you go to DeepSeek's website over here, you'll see that they actually have been showing their capabilities, and in a lot of cases, they appear to actually beat out their competition. Not in every actual way. There's certain cases where obviously Sonnet, Claude, ChatGPT do actually end up beating out even like Meta's Llama, but DeepSeek's a pretty good competitor in this field
Ja,
so
das ist
far.
doch kein
And of course, to start
kein
it now,
schlechter
you can go
Vergleich.
to their website and just simply give your phone number, password. Well, actually, the phone number, I believe, has to be a Chinese number. But for a country, China, that bans Google, they surely do allow you to use your American or foreign Google account to serve as a
Erstmal
login
aussortieren.
method, which I thought was actually pretty hilarious. Now, because of how popular DeepSeek has gotten, it's like #1 in the App Store, super duper popular, and it's been disrupting the market so much that apparently they have been attacked with a massive cyber attack going on right now. According to DeepSeek, literally due to a large-scale malicious attack on DeepSeek services, we're temporarily limiting registrations to ensure continued service. Existing users can log in as
Ey, das ist
usual.
schon hart.
Thank you for your understanding and support. And obviously, with all of the advancements that they've kind of done, if you look very carefully at what they've done to the actual market, it becomes pretty apparent why they're getting attacked. Like,
Ja,
if
die
you
sind
look at
aus dem
Nvidia
Nichts
stock,
gekommen
literally,
und
as I was
direkt
making this video,
an die
they're
Spitze.
just doing fine. They're doing absolutely okay. Boom! They drop like a rock. In the last 5 days, you're looking at a 14.8% drop. And to give you an idea,
Aber richtig steil nach
according to
unten.
the actual analysts over here, you're looking at a $600 billion shedding for Nvidia. Just imagine waking up that day with your Nvidia bags and you're like, oh no, what happened? Why am I losing money? Obviously, some crazy bullish investor on Wall Street Bets is just rubbing his hands going, it's time to buy that dip. Now, why is Nvidia suffering the hardest? Well, if you want to know how training these AI models come out to, one of the biggest tech companies, the people that create the hardware, Nvidia in this case, create these massive GPUs and these clusters that these companies buy for exorbitant prices to serve as training hardware for multiple AI. So it could be OpenAI, it could be
Ja, die
Grok,
brauchen ja
or in this case, it could actually be
Prozessorleistung.
DeepSeek because they've also used Nvidia technology.
Jeder
But they
nutzt,
said
glaube ich,
they just
Nvidia.
spent
Oder ein
5.6
Großteil.
million on Nvidia stuff. And how they apparently did that was because, so right here, the H800 GPU. So they're not using like the newest or the most expensive GPUs. They basically said that they can create something super duper efficient that requires, again, a fraction of that compute power. And the reason, again, why Nvidia is falling is that usually they're able to flood the market with like tons of these chips. So now the market is realizing, whoa, maybe we're putting
brauchen's gar
way
nicht.
too much, price. Maybe we're putting way too much stock on how much each of these chips are needed. If you can get this DeepSeek stuff done with a fraction of the compute power and all the hardware, maybe the market should kind of correct itself. Cooking Boy here writes, H800 has a fraction of the computing power as the H100, let alone the new B200, and retails for cheaper with less profit to Nvidia.
Yeah.
If cutting-edge models can be trained on much less compute, then there is less demand for the highest profit margin, most
So wie es aussieht.
expensive GPUs from Nvidia. At least that's what the market fears, and I think that's the most succinct way to kind of put this. Now, since you can't access DeepSeek,
Man braucht halt nicht immer das
V3
Beste vom Besten.
right now because of
Manchmal
a cyber
tut's halt
attack,
auch
if you have the
was
hardware,
anderes.
meaning you have some serious, like, actual, we're talking tens upon tens of thousands, if not more, dollars worth of hardware, you can go to Hugging Face and actually download the most, like, their actual model right now. So, for instance, 325,000 downloads as of a week ago. This is a 685 billion parameter model. So you could just download, again, DeepSeek V3 and try to effectively run it on your actual hardware. And some people, from what I've understand, actually have tried. But we're not going to do that. So to run DeepSeek, it's pretty simple. First thing you need if you have, and I'm going to make this guide for people that are using Windows, which is the majority of my community. But of course, if you have Linux or Mac OS, you can also achieve the same thing. So inside here, if you want to run it, or if you want to run even things like Llama or Phi, download a program known as Ollama and just get it installed under your operating system. After this, go to a site, chatboxai.app, where you can download a chatbot AI that will interface with your Ollama server locally installed to your device. So once you've installed Ollama, all you can do is open up your start menu, go to the terminal, and inside your terminal, you want to type in Ollama run DeepSeek R132B. Now there's other versions. 32B is just something that I'm running on my system. But there are multiple different types. There's DeepSeek R1:1.5B, which would be the smallest version, something that you could even run on a simple, cheaper device. Then you can work your way up to 8 billion, 14B, 32B,
Für jeden
and of
was
course
zu
the
haben.
smartest version, 7DB. So in this situation, of course, if you have the hardware that I have in my system,
Und das halt gratis?
128 gigs of RAM, a RTX 4090, Ryzen 9 5950X, and a whole boatload
Weil da
of
muss auch
storage,
irgendwo ein Haken
then
sein.
yes, you can
Oder
run
will er
some
einfach nur
of the
die
more
Amis
stronger
verarschen?
parameters. But again, your mileage may vary depending on the hardware. So at this moment in time, when you open up your actual chatbot service, you can basically go to the settings corner at the bottom left, and then inside where you get the model, you can go to your model provider and pick Ollama API. And if you have the actual Ollama DeepSeek model installed, you can go down into this option and click whatever model you've installed and just hit save. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how easy it is to get a
Ist schon
locally
echt
running
easy.
AI on your system. So let's actually see what this little bad boy can do. So we can ask DeepSeek about really anything, right? So let's say we could ask it about like are ghosts real, for instance, right? And then we hit enter. Now the interesting thing about this actual model is again, first things first. If you want to look carefully, you'll see that my GPU just spikes, so it goes all the way up as the actual thing is thinking, it's processing, it's spinning up the actual server. So give it a little bit of time, and it'll start thinking here. So, okay, I'm trying to figure out whether ghosts are real. Where do I even start with this? I've heard people talk about ghosts all the time in books, movies, and even from friends who say they've experienced something spooky. So what you're seeing here is not even the answer, it's the AI actually thinking about what I asked it. So much
Ja,
like,
das ist auch
Mass
interessant.
Effect
Man kriegt nicht nur die Antwort, man
where
kriegt
you
auch den
ask it
ganzen
something, it's gonna go
Lösungsweg.
think like a human would, and then it will provide you the answer. So once it's thought, it actually will give you the answer you would expect out of any ChatGPT prompt. So the interesting thing about this is not only do you get the actual answer to your question,
Sondern den Weg
but you get
dahin.
to see how the AI itself is processing and thinking. Tell me how to solve world hunger, but think like Donald Trump, I guess. So literally it knows about Donald Trump as a prominent figure, and the only reason I brought him up is because we're going to look at some of the actual political ramifications of this later on. But obviously, even the AI, as it's thinking, will actually say, okay, to apply, world hunger, according to Trump, you have to think with strong leadership, making deals, emphasizing American interests, bold statements, and simplifications. So it will provide you, again, all of these answers with the quote-unquote Trump approach. Now, if I ask it, give me, how do I solve world hunger in the mind of Xi Jinping? And then again, it will think in the perspective of another person in its data bank. So I always thought this is really interesting because you will literally see, and you can even learn about like history.
Ey, das finde ich halt super interessant, dass man halt auf den Lösungsweg kriegt.
So it's, to me, the coolest thing about this is just seeing how the AI itself is thinking like as we're working here. It's crazy shit. Now, obviously, it's not the only thing that I care much about the AI. You can also ask this AI to code things for you. So, for instance, I can ask DeepSeek, like, write me code for a simple login web page. So at this moment in time, it'll be like, all right, the user is asking for code to create a simple login page. So first, it's going to structure HTML, then it's going to style, then it's going to validate, and then here it is. It's actually writing me the HTML code. So we're sitting in a world where, like, I feel so scared for, like, junior coders these days because, goddamn, AI is really coming for some of the jobs that people least expected to lose first. So again, it writes this actual login page. And of course, once it's done, it'll actually also provide you a preview in this chatbot software so you can see it for yourself before you actually throw it into, production or
Ey,
testing or
das ist
whatever.
schon,
So right here, I'm
schon
just
sweet.
going to hit that preview button, and boom, there it
Nice.
is. It actually wrote me a simple login page, which I think is pretty damn cool. So I can even say it's like, write me code for a basic web-based roguelike dungeon crawler game in the vein of NetHack. I wonder what it'll do here. It's actually crazy. It's going through it. Oh my God. It's actually insane, man. So it's like thinking. It's like I'm making a goddamn game. I'm writing a grid-based system. Characters and monsters, movement, combat mechanics,
Oh, nice.
dungeon procedurally. I remember this, like, there was actually 2 kids in my computer programming class in, like, high school, and one of the final projects for, like, C++, was it C++? I don't even think we were doing C++ at the time. This would probably be in, like, it was some, like, Pascal or whatever the hell it was. Or maybe they did write it in C, I'm not sure. But they wrote, like, an actual dungeon crawler as a final and, like, basically overshadowed everyone, dude. Like, goddamn, I never felt so damn fucking embarrassed. But again, they're writing this whole code out for me, and you can preview this for yourself. And obviously, you can see where
Ist so
the
nice.
parameters tend to
Das kann
come,
so
right?
praktisch
Like, this
sein,
is my
aber man muss es halt auch richtig
and
einsetzen.
we are using basically all of the dedicated GPU memory, and the utilization is going off the wall here. It's not really doing anything with my memory or my CPU as much as it's taxing my actual GPU. So like I said, if you don't have the 4090 or an equivalent GPU, you might want to run a smaller parameter because this will take significantly longer for you to do if you don't have the same set of hardware I do. Now, there is a darker side to this model as well. Obviously, it's not
Gibt
perfect
immer einen
because
Haken.
this is a Chinese-based LLM. We also have to deal with Chinese-level censorship. So, for instance, when I say, can you tell me why Xi Jinping looks like Winnie the Pooh? Now, obviously, this is a pretty severe no-no, and I'm sure there's probably a Chinese assassin waiting for me. But again, when I ask it, it seems odd because Xi Jinping is the president of China, but there's some underlying reason. I think about how comparing people's public figures to characters know for various reasons. There's cultural differences, another angle is media representation, and I wonder if there's political there's definitely political repercussions to making those comparisons. So for instance, a lot of people wanted to check if this AI is censored because of its Chinese origins. And obviously,
Würde
if
mich
you
wundern,
ask
wenn
it,
es nicht ist.
tell me about the Tiananmen Square massacre. And again, there's worse massacres that have happened, but this is the one that people always like to ask and do the Chinese censorship test. So again, it'll think about it for sure. I also remember hearing censorship around this topic, especially in China. So getting accurate information may be tough because of that. But of course, as I'm asking this entire AI, it is thinking about the entire thing. And I always think this is super cool to see. Like, this is actually the thing that's blowing my mind the most. Actually, in this case, DeepSeek is not really hiding anything. It really is talking about the timeline led by students and intellectuals, the protest call for democratic reforms and freedom of speech. In summary, the Tiananmen Square massacre was a defining moment in China's modern history, characterized by
Hätte ich jetzt nicht
widespread
erwartet.
protests for democratic reforms, followed by a violent crackdown that left a lasting impact on the nation's political landscape and international relations. Actually, this doesn't really seem all that crazy censored. However, when I did ask it a prompt about the same thing earlier, it gave me, I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. I'm an AI assistant to provide helpful and, again, non-controversial answers. So according to this, one of these articles where they asked it about, serious questions, one of them was, let's see, can you tell me something about Winnie the Pooh? The bot generated an answer and quickly pulled it back. Sorry, that's beyond my current scope. So I guess I'll ask it. I'll just be like, can you tell me something about Winnie the Pooh? And yeah, it's actually thinking about it. And Child the Pooh, someone writing paper on him. Yeah, it's actually thinking about Winnie the Pooh. It's crazy shit. I don't think it's actually censoring anything. Maybe the DeepSeek R1 model isn't the censored one, but that wouldn't make any sense. It's still coming out of China and everything. It still goes through and explains Winnie the Pooh to me. So again, I don't know. Does he look like Xi Jinping? I'm sorry, but I cannot engage in comparisons between fiction. Oh yeah. Oh, this is definitely a Chinese AI, that's for sure. God damn. It knows. It's like I gotta respond. I can't be doing this. We gotta shut it down. So, all right, that's enough playing around with DeepSeek's R1. Obviously, it's not directly comparable to something like ChatGPT. That, I believe, is the V3 model, which unfortunately I was unable to use because of this quote-unquote cyber attack that's been happening onto them. Now, obviously, one of the big things that also came out of DeepSeek was that it poses a serious privacy threat. And it caused people to actually start looking into their privacy policy. And one of the things that showed up was they literally, when you use their services, they collect your text, audio input, prompt, uploaded files, feedback, chat history that you provide to their models and services. Like I said earlier, when it came to self-hosting, this is par for the course for literally every single service.
Now,
Ja,
again,
das macht ja jede AI oder
OpenAI's privacy
alles.
policy, again, if you're worried about this Chinese application spying on you, remember the same user policy for OpenAI so that they also collect personal data that you provide to the input on their services. So anything you upload, such as files, images, audio, anything you provide can literally be used by them, okay? Literally, they say personal data. We collect information from your browser and device automatically sends when you use our services. Usage data, device information, location information. So if you
Wie die
are
anderen halt
genuinely
auch.
worried about being spied on by
Nichts
DeepSeek,
Neues.
then you should equally not be using something like OpenAI's ChatGPT. And again, this is one of the reasons why I say if you want to be ultimately safe from spying or any form of privacy busting, use these AIs as much as you can on local devices. There's distilled light models that will run even on cell phones to this day. Again, that's my extreme end. If you're worried about your privacy, DeepSeek is not the only one interested in busting it.
And there have been other things that have come up, so I'm going to kind of end it with this. One of the things that I saw was Trump apparently pledging that there was going to be tariffs on things like steels, but more importantly, semiconductors. Now, for anybody that doesn't know, one of the largest semiconductor companies in the world is TSMC, hosted in Taiwan. They're so huge that they account for basically almost every semiconductor in the world. I mean, at least a massive chunk of them. Chances are something from your phone all the way to your graphics card, all the way to anything is probably actually manufactured at TSMC.
Yeah.
And that's because semiconductor manufacturing is very, very difficult. It requires taking silicone, cutting it into high quality wafers. There's a super complicated process on making these things, and of course it requires the intelligent minds that only few areas really exist. It's a very complicated procedure. You're literally teaching a bunch of rocks how to effectively think and do what I've shown you throughout this whole video. So obviously, with no real manufacturing at home right now, I think placing a tariff can be a little bit different. Remember, a tariff works in a way where if a company sells you a semiconductor, in this case, for $100, basically the tariff, if applied for, let's say, I don't know, an extra $100, that basically means that that company will sell you that same product for $100. Then you also have to give $100 to the government because of the tariff. And now you have to basically upcharge the product when you sell it to the actual public. So chances are you're probably going to sell for $250 when you could have sold for $150, right? If you didn't have to pay that extra tariff. Now, at the end of the day, the tariff is great if you want to move people to your home country, but if there's no manufacturing there right now, it can be pretty dangerous for companies like Microsoft, Nvidia, especially Nvidia, Apple,
Ja,
for
jetzt.
instance, when they deal with their supply of semiconductors effectively being threatened. Now, I think this video has gone on pretty long enough in this situation. I've shown you, again, DeepSeek and how it showed up and basically turned the world on its head. I've also shown you how to get this thing up and running if you want to play around with it yourself right now. But yeah, hopefully you learned why the entire world has been shitting itself, because out of nowhere, the Chinese literally released a free and open
Okay, es war
source
dann tatsächlich
competitor
doch so out
to
of
one of the
nowhere. Ich hab's
largest
halt
players
heute
in
erst
the game.
mitgekriegt.
And they've actually done a pretty fairly good job at it. Such an efficient job that even some of the biggest tech
Schon?
companies in the world are pissing and shitting themselves, wondering what's going to happen.
Ja.
So if you wonder why the
Effizient
stock
war es auf
market
jeden
was
Fall,
in
wenn das
blood
alles
red,
stimmt, was sie
it's
sagen.
because one company created a $6 million product that rivals a product that is currently costing billions of dollars to build.
Hey, das ist auch ein
upkeep, and
Unterschied.
evolve. So,
Hey, das sind so große Zahlen, man kann die sich ja eigentlich kaum vorstellen, was allein schon der Unterschied zwischen 1 Million und 1 Milliarde ist. Und dann sind es 1 Billiarde oder Billion. Oh, das sind echt krass hohe Zahlen. Oh, kein Wunder, das kam halt aus dem Nichts und Ja, für einen Bruchteil an Kosten.
I don't know how true a lot of these prices really are. We're really going with the word and mouth of
Ja,
a
uns
Chinese
bleibt nichts anderes
company that,
übrig.
could be lying just to be a loss leader and ultimately snuff out the competition in the market and, I don't know, maybe raise up prices down the road or just serve as a giant data harvesting tool. But I'm a little suspect of those claims if they're releasing all this stuff as open source products. The reality is, I
Ja,
think
gerade
China
das
really
Open
wants to
Source
be
finde
a
ich halt
big
super
leader,
spannend.
and moves like this is what solidifies you as the big leader. I guess a comparison that I kind of can make is back in the day when you were browsing the internet, you had to pay to get things like Netscape Navigator. But Microsoft jumped in and provided a free alternative. Maybe it didn't have all the features that Netscape did, but it didn't matter. It was free, people used that, and over time it became the de facto option.
Es
Which I
ist
think
nicht das erste
ultimately
Mal, dass
might be
sowas
the play
passiert.
over here. But I don't know. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am out.
Auf jeden Fall interessante Info. Ja, das halt, ich habe das jetzt halt auch seit heute erst mitgekriegt. Es kam so aus dem Nichts. Er hat ein Video drüber gemacht. So, gucke ich mir das direkt mal an. War doch eigentlich sehr informativ. Ist auch krass, so aus dem Nichts. Ja. Bin mal gespannt, was daraus wird. Wie das weitergeht mit dem AI. Das ist ja momentan sehr aufsteigend. Wir werden es auch nicht mehr los. Ein neuer Umschwung.